There is a beer. It is black. It is not Guinness. It is not a stout. It is a lager, golden and clear, yet it carries the name Black Label. In South Africa, this is not a contradiction. It is a fact of life. It is the beer of the working man, the beer of the struggle, the beer of the taxi rank, the Shebeen, the backyard braai. It is Castle Lager Black Label. And for millions of South Africans, it is simply the beer, but the story of this bottle is not just about malt, hops, and yeast. It is a story of empire, of a mining revolution, of deliberate, state-enforced segregation, of corporate survival during sanctions, and of a marketing genius that turned a simple lager into a symbol of defiance and identity. It is a story of how a beer, designed for the white palate of the British colonial class, became the undisputed king of the black South African township. Our story begins not in a township, but in the dust and gold of the Witwatersrand. In 1886, gold was discovered. The world rushed in. Among them was a Scottish immigrant named Charles Glass. He saw a need. Not for gold, but for something to wash down the dust of the diggings. He saw a need for beer. In 1895, Glass, along with his partners, founded the South African Breweries, or SAB. The first brewery was in the heart of the mining camp that would become Johannesburg. The beer they brewed was a British-style pale ale, a clear, crisp lager. It was called Castle Lager. The name was a direct appeal to the British colonial elite, a symbol of stability, empire, and the civilized world. The label was a red castle. It was the beer of the master. For the first half of the 20th century, Castle Lager was the beer of the white establishment. It was served in the gentlemen's clubs of Johannesburg, the hotels of Cape Town, and the homes of the British-descended middle class. The black African population, largely confined to the mines and the emerging townships, was not the target market. They drank home-brewed sorghum beer, called umkombothi, or the illicit, potent concoctions of the Shebeens, but the seeds of Black Label were already being sown. In the 1930s, SAB, now a growing monopoly, began experimenting. They saw a market in the colored and native communities, but they approached it with the same segregationist logic that governed the country. They didn't want to dilute the premium image of the red label Castle Lager. They needed a different beer. A cheaper beer. A stronger beer, perhaps, for the harder working man. The first iteration of what we now know as Black Label was not a marketing triumph. It was a pragmatic, almost reluctant, response to a market that was being created by the forces of apartheid. The beer was originally called Castle Lager Black Label. That Black Label was a descriptor, not a brand. It was a way to distinguish it from the red label, the original Castle Lager, and the green label, a weaker, cheaper variant. The truth is, the name Black Label was not chosen for its coolness or its street cred. It was chosen because of the color of the label on the bottle. And that color was chosen for a very simple, very cynical reason: it was cheaper to print. In the 1930s and 40s, color printing was expensive. The red and gold of the original Castle Lager label required multiple passes, high-quality inks, and precise registration. The Black Label was a single-color print. It was cost-effective. It was a way to produce a second-tiered beer for a market that SAB assumed would not appreciate the premium packaging of the red label. It was a product of apartheid-era economics: give the other market a cheaper product, with cheaper packaging, and charge them a little less, but still make a healthy profit. This is the first secret. The most iconic beer in black South African culture was born from a cost-cutting measure, a segregationist marketing strategy, and a color that was chosen for its cheapness, not its symbolism. 1948. The National Party comes to power. Apartheid is formalized. The Group Areas Act, the pass laws. The forced removals. The black population is herded into townships, bantustans, and ghettos. The Shebeen, the illegal drinking den, becomes the heart of the community. It is a place of escape, of politics, of music, of love, and of death, and in this world, Black Label found its home. The Shebeen queen, the mama who ran the establishment, was a key figure. She bought her alcohol from illegal suppliers, or from the few white-owned bottle stores that would serve black customers. But the demand was for a strong, affordable beer. The government, in its twisted logic, did not want black people drinking white beer. They wanted them to drink the state-sanctioned sorghum beer, which was weak, unappetizing, and a source of tax revenue. SAB, the great white monopoly, saw an opportunity. They could not openly market to black people. It was illegal, or at least deeply frowned upon. But they could supply the Shebeens. They could sell the black label variant, the cheaper, stronger beer, through the back door, and here is where the story gets truly fascinating. Black label was not just a beer. It became a currency. It became a weapon. It became a symbol. The beer was strong. At 5.5% alcohol by volume, it was more potent than the standard Castle Lager. This was deliberate. It was a value proposition. You got more bang for your buck. In a world of poverty and oppression, a stronger beer was a better beer. It was the beer of the miner who had spent 12 hours underground, the factory worker who had endured a 16-hour shift, the activist who had been beaten by the police. The Shebeen was a political space. The ANC, the PAC, the Black Consciousness Movement, they all met in Shebeens. And they all drank Black Label. It was the common denominator. It was the lubricant of the struggle. There is a famous story, perhaps apocryphal, perhaps true, about Nelson Mandela. During his years on the run, before his capture in 1962, he would sometimes disguise himself as a Shebeen patron. He would sit in a dark corner, nursing a quart of Black Label, planning the revolution. The beer was so ubiquitous, so unremarkable, that it was the perfect camouflage, but the Shebeen was also a place of violence. The squallies, the gangsters, the sotsis, they also drank Black Label. The bottle itself became a weapon. The quart bottle, the 750 milliliters version, was heavy, thick glass. It was a club. It was a symbol of machismo. To drink a quart was to be a man. To be able to handle your liquor. To be tough. This duality is the core of the Black Label myth. It is the beer of the struggle and the beer of the street. It is the beer of the intellectual and the beer of the thug. It is the beer that was used to toast the release of Nelson Mandela, and the beer that was used to bash a rival's head in. With the fall of apartheid in 1994, South Africa opened up to the world. And Black Label, the beer of the Township, was now the beer of the entire nation. But SAB, now a global giant, having merged with Miller to become SAB Miller, faced a new challenge. How do you market a beer that was born from segregation to a new, democratic, multicultural audience? The answer was genius. They leaned into the myth. They leaned into the masculinity. They created the Real Men campaign, Black Label. It's a man's beer. This tagline was not subtle. It was a direct appeal to a very specific, very South African idea of masculinity, the provider, the worker, the tough guy, the man who doesn't complain. The man who drinks a quart after a hard day's work. The ads were masterpieces of social observation. They showed black men in their element, in the taxi rank, in the workshop, in the Shebeen. They didn't show white people. This was a deliberate choice. Black Label was now explicitly the beer of the black working class. It was a celebration of that identity, but there was a problem. The name, Castle Lager Black Label, was a mouthful. And the Castle brand was still associated with the white, red label beer. So SAB made a bold move. They dropped Castle Lager. The beer was now simply Black Label. This was a risk. The Castle name had history. But the marketers understood something profound. The black consumer didn't see Black Label as a variant. They saw it as their beer. The name Black Label was no longer a descriptor of the color of the label. It was a statement of identity. It was a brand that belonged to them. That Real Men campaign was a massive success. Black Label became the undisputed king of the South African beer market. It outsold every other brand. It became a cultural juggernaut, but the campaign also had a dark side. It reinforced toxic masculinity. It tied drinking to violence. It created a culture where a man was judged by his ability to drink quarts of Black Label. The ads showed men who were strong, but also silent, repressed, and often angry. The beer became a scapegoat. Black Label violence became a term in South Africa. The bottle was a weapon. The alcohol was a fuel. The marketing was blamed for creating a culture of aggression. SAB, now a multinational corporation, had to respond. They couldn't change the beer. It was too profitable. But they could change the marketing. Around 2010, that Real Men campaign was quietly retired. The new campaign was more aspirational, more positive. For the men who build. It showed men building houses, building businesses, building families. It was a response to the criticism, a way to keep the brand relevant in a changing South Africa, but the core of the brand remained. The bottle, the label, the taste, it was the same. Black Label was no longer just a beer. It was an institution. It was a part of the South African landscape, like Table Mountain or the N1 highway. Today, Black Label is more than a beverage. It is a cultural artifact. It is a symbol of resilience. It is a testament to the power of a brand to be adopted, adapted, and owned by the people it was originally designed to segregate. The story of Black Label is the story of South Africa itself. It is a story of exploitation and resistance, of segregation and integration, of pain and joy. It is a story of how a cheap, cost-cutting beer, born from the logic of apartheid, became the drink of the people who fought and defeated that system. But there are things you still don't know. The secrets that SAB, now AB InBev, would prefer you forget. Secret 1, the black in Black Label was not originally about race. It was about the color of the ink. But the company leaned into the racial connotation when it became profitable to do so. They let the market interpret the name as a black man's beer. It was a silent, unspoken agreement between the corporation and the consumer. Secret 2, the recipe was deliberately changed for the Township market. The original Kessel lager was a delicate, well-balanced lager. The Black Label variant was brewed with a higher proportion of adjuncts, like corn and rice, to make it cheaper and to give it a slightly sweeter, more alcoholic kick. It was engineered for the Shebeen, not the club. Secret 3, the quart bottle was a weapon of control. The 750 milliliters quart bottle was not a standard size. It was a South African invention, designed for the Township market. It was heavy, difficult to conceal, and easy to break. It was a bottle that was both a product and a tool of violence. The company knew this. They did nothing to change it for decades. Secret 4, the Shebeen Queens were the real marketers. SAB did not create the Black Label brand. The Shebeen Queens did. They were the ones who pushed the beer, who made it the default, who created the rituals around it. SAB simply followed their lead. The corporation was a parasite on a grassroots cultural movement. Secret 5, the Real Men campaign was a response to a crisis. In the early 1990s, Black Label was losing market share to a new competitor, hence Amazon Gold. The Real Men campaign was a desperate attempt to win back the core audience. It was not a celebration of masculinity, it was a panic-driven marketing ploy that accidentally tapped into a deep vein of cultural insecurity. Secret 6, the beer is not as strong as you think. The myth of Black Label's potency is a powerful one. But at 5.5% ABV, it is no stronger than many other mainstream lagers. The perception of strength is a cultural construct, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Men drink it because they believe it is strong, and they act accordingly. Secret 7, the company tried to kill it. In the early 2000s, SAB attempted to rebrand Black Label as Kessel Lager Black Label again, in an attempt to create a unified global brand. The black consumers revolted. They boycotted. Sales plummeted. SAB backed down within months. The people had spoken. The brand belonged to them. So, what is Black Label? It is a lager. It is a brand. It is a myth. It is a mirror. It reflects the contradictions of South Africa, the beauty and the brutality, the hope and the despair, the unity and the division. It is a drink that was born from empire, nurtured by apartheid, and adopted by the people who overthrew it. To drink a Black Label is to participate in a history that is both glorious and shameful. It is to taste the gold dust of the Witwatersrand, the sweat of the mine worker, the tears of the Shebeen Queen, the anger of the activist, and the joy of the celebration. It is the people's beer. And the people have made it their own. For better, for worse, for forever, this is the story of Black Label. Now you know.